Welcome everybody, my name is Matt. Today I'm doing a review of the Cranborne Audio 500R8. Now you may have seen my unboxing video for this that I did about a year ago. And in that video I said I will be doing a review soon. Well, soon is subjective, it's only been about a year, but that time has given me plenty of opportunity to put this thing through its paces. And now I'm very familiar with it, and spoiler alert, I freaking love it. So what is the 500R8? Well, this is a 500 series chassis and a USB interface combined. So let's go ahead and get into it and take a look at the front panel. So let's start with the obvious. It is a 500R8, so it is a 8-slot 500 series chassis. Right now, I have 3 preamps in there, my 2 Warm Audio Tone Beasts and my Phoenix Audio preamp. Now you can also do effects like compression, de-essing, EQ, all those things as well. It does not have to be a preamp. But right below the slot, you'll see there is a volume and a pan knob. You can use these to create a direct analog headphone mix for your artist, or if you take the source selector switch over to USB, it becomes an 8-channel analog summing mixer. So you can take 8 sources from your DAW, bring them into these knobs, and do a stereo sum. Also on that source selector, there's the cast option, and we'll talk about that in a second. Right next to that, there's another little switch that says chain. And so basically, if you want to go from one slot to the next and create your own custom channel strip, you can do that for all 8 slots before you hit the converter. So if you have your chain turned on all 8 slots, then you would go from slot 1 to 2 to 3 all the way down to 8, and then it would hit the analog to digital converters. So if you have an 8-slot channel strip in mind, I don't know what that would be, but you could do it. So let's move on to the right side of the 500R8. Up at the top, you see the monitor control section. So you have your meters up there. You have an A, B speaker select, so you can have A speakers and B speakers connected to this. You got a mono sum, a mute button, and then you have a dim button that'll bring the volume down. And then one of my favorite features, you actually have a built-in talkback button and a talkback volume knob. Right below that, you have a headphone section. So there's 2 headphone jacks with their own dedicated outputs, and there's a volume for each and a blend for each. Now the blend knob will blend between your analog mix on your input and your USB DAW mix. So you can have a vocalist monitor direct from their microphone while they're hearing the mix from your software. Also, there's a DAW 1 or DAW 2 selector switch. So the DAW 2 is an additional stereo output from your DAW. So channels 29 and 30 output from your software can be your cue mix or your artist headphone mix. You select that, and now you can make a perfect mix for them without having to mess with your master or your main mix. So really cool feature, use that all the time. Let's flip this thing over, check out the back. All right, starting the top left of the back, you got the XLR outputs, that's for your speaker A. TRS outputs, that's for your speaker B. Just to the right of that, you have the DAW 2 inputs. So if you want your DAW 2 source to come from an external device rather than your DAW, you can actually bring those in analog in the back. Right below that, you have the talkback XLR. Phantom power is always on for that. Then you have the mix outputs. So if you're doing an analog sum, it'll come out there, or you can go directly into your DAW. Below that, you have the aux 1 outputs. So that's the second headphone as well from the front. So if you want to do a headphone mix into a more sophisticated headphone system, you can use the aux 1 outputs rather than the headphone jack in the front. You have a cast link right next to that, which I'll discuss in a second. You got power, your USB, MIDI, word clock in and out, SPDIF, and ADAT. And then above that, you have your cast A, B, C, and D. Now, the cast system basically turns 4 XLRs into one Cat 5 or one Cat 6. So you can plug a Cat 6 into one of these and then run it into an ISO booth. And then you can get a peripheral that Cranborne Audio makes. It's a little headphone box. And then you have a stereo headphone mix out of that box and 2 mic inputs that will bring it back to this system and put it into the modules. So very cool. If you want to expand your studio into another room, it makes it super easy with just one cable. And then the cast link that I referred to earlier, Cranborne Audio also makes another version of this 500 chassis called the 500 ADAT. Now that has ADAT only. It does not do USB, doesn't have all the monitor controls. And you just plug that ADAT into the back of the 500 R8. And now instead of 8 inputs, you have 16 inputs. And you also do the cast link, which links the 2 summing mixers. And now instead of an 8-channel summing mixer, you have a 16-channel summing mixer. So lots of really cool expandability. At the top of each slot channel, you have, of course, the input. And then one of the biggest advantages that this has over your standard USB interface is the insert jack. Now you may be saying, what's so great about an insert jack? That doesn't seem really like a big deal. Well, with your standard USB interface, once you plug into it and your signal's in it, you don't really have much flexibility. There's not much you can do after that. If you have some outboard gear that now you want to bring your signal into, you have to go through your converters, into your software, create a software insert, come back out of your system, into your outboard gear, back into your converters, into your software. It's a big pain in the butt, and it doesn't sound quite as good, and it just takes way more work. So with this and a proper patch bay, now you have super amounts of flexibility. So you can go into your preamp and then into, like I have a couple DBX 160s, and then right back into the 500 R8 and then hit the converters. The more recording and mixing that I do, the more I try and dial things in before it hits my software. That way I have to do way less on the back end in editing and mixing. Right below that, you have a direct output. So if you just want to use this as a 500 chassis, maybe one day you grow, to be so big you have a huge studio, you don't really need this to be an interface anymore. Well, you can still utilize it as a 500 chassis with the direct output, and just bring everything into your modules and then right back out into whatever other system you have. So I started getting a lot more people wanting to work with me, jobs coming my way, people wanting me to mix and track their work, which is great. That's a good sign. However, I was feeling very limited by my USB interface. Like I mentioned earlier, there's not a whole lot of flexibility in it. I had a lot of outboard gear that I wanted to integrate, and also I want to be able to sculpt the tone as much as I can on the way into the box. That way it makes the mixing process that much faster. And when you have 8 of the same preamp, you're pretty limited. So I wanted to be able to get different sounding preamps that I could pick and choose for different applications. Also, I was really limited in my ability to do proper headphone mixes for my artists. So I looked all over the place, and that's when I found Cranborne Audio 500 R8. It seemed to solve all of my problems. It is by far the biggest and best investment I've made in my studio in probably the last 10 years. The difference has been huge. But of course, there are a few flaws in it. And when you have something that is this awesome, that has this much power, you really have to nitpick to find the cons in it. But over the last year of working with it, these things did come to my mind. So I feel like it's worth bringing up just so you hear kind of what I was thinking. So the first and biggest problem that I've had with it is the lack of a dedicated headphone volume. So when you're using headphone output 1, the volume knob is the same knob for your main speaker output. So when I turn the headphone volume up on that for a vocalist or someone, it's also turning my monitors up and down. Now that can be remedied obviously by using the headphone 2 output, but if you want to do 2 separate mixes for two different artists, that starts to become more difficult. Also, that brings me into my second problem. When you start to increase the resolution that you're recording at, you lose I/O. Now, I know that Cranborne Audio wanted to make the 500 R8 compatible with as many machines as possible, and so they put a USB 2.0 interface on it, but that limits the bandwidth to the point where if you go from a 44.1 recording to an 88.2 recording, it literally cuts your inputs and outputs in half. So that really awesome DAW2 mix that you can do for your Q mix for your artists, that goes away when you go to 88.2. That was when I first noticed that and had to go to the manual. I was like, where'd my Q mix go? Oh, it's because I'm in 88.2. So again, not a huge deal because you can just use your main mix for the artist to monitor off of, but it's still something to keep in mind. And lastly, like I mentioned before, I really like the talkback feature that's included in the monitor control section. However, when you're in your studio and the lights are dimmed and you're working with somebody, sometimes it could be kind of cumbersome to reach over there and find that one button. So it would have been really cool if they had just a simple jack in the back, just a circuit closure that you could do to turn that talkback on and off with a button or maybe a foot switch. With everything that they've included in this package, again, not really a big deal. It's awesome that they included that talkback in the first place, but these are things that have come up. So with all that said, the question is the 500 R8 right for you? Should you go out and buy one right now? Well, they come in around $1,800, and that's with no modules in it. So modules can range widely from relatively inexpensive to incredibly expensive, but on average they're around $700. So multiply that $700 times 8, add $1,800. It can get really expensive really quickly. So if you're just recording demos in your bedroom for your band or your buddy's band, or you're just doing singer-songwriter stuff and you only need a couple inputs and outputs, no, you really don't need the 500 R8. A simple USB interface will do really well for you. Focusrite, I've done the Focusrite 18i20, it's really good. The audience stuff, there's a lot of options out there. You really don't need to drop this kind of cash. However, if you're starting to get more clients and you're starting to charge money and you want to get that pro studio sound, then you're gonna have to upgrade. If you get a bunch of outboard gear, like I said, that standard USB interface isn't gonna cut it. So in that case, yeah, the 500 R8 is a really good option for you. It allows you to bring in all the preamps you want, all the outboard gear you want, and has great converters and I/O count and headphone mixes at the same time, all in one package. I love my 500 R8. I don't know that I'm ever gonna outgrow it. I highly recommend it if you're ready to take that step from the simple USB interface up to more pro audio. So thanks for watching, everybody. As always, I appreciate your time. Leave me some feedback in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I'm growing pretty quickly. It's all thanks to you guys, and I appreciate it a lot. Let's keep it going. I'm gonna be releasing videos more often, hopefully. So keep checking back as often as you can. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.